guys, welcome once again to my channel. So wonderful, and I'm wonderful. Yes, I changed the name of the channel from what it was before to So Wonderful. I hope you like it. Anyway, today's video tutorial is something I really love. This top that I'm wearing is called the Shirred top. Okay, many people call it the Smocked top, but the correct term is actually Shirred top. So whatever it is you call it, this is what we're making today, and I love it. I really love it. It's something that you can style in different ways. Okay, semi-formal, casual, you name it. Wear it to the beach, to events, and all of that. I mean, you can see how I look. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm going to be making another one and showing you how to make it with this fabric of mine. And when you're done making yours, please tag me. Always send me pictures. I love to see your pictures. Tag me on Instagram, send me an email. Just let me know. Let me see how it is you look on your stories or whatever. And for this particular tutorial, you don't need more than 2 yards, except maybe your plus size. Okay, and you can make yours as a dress if that's what you prefer. But I'd advise you start first with a top, and then you can do the dress later. Okay, you can use your Ankara, your crepe fabric, your plain cotton fabric, you name it. Just something, a fabric that is not too difficult to work with, okay, that you're comfortable with. And yeah, that's about it. And you need just about 4 measurements for this particular top. I really love it. I mean, do I not look good? Please let me know in the comment section if I look good on this with this top that I'm wearing. I can't wait to see what you make. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so time to take our measurements, and for this top we'll be needing just 4 measurements. Okay, we'll be needing our bust measurement, round our bust, the length of the top you want to make, and then the sleeve length and the sleeve width. Okay, so the first one, your bust measurement, you just want to take your measuring tape, round your bust, the fullest part of your bust. Okay, round it, and then you note that figure down. And then the next one is to take the length of the top. Okay, the shirred or smoked top, but shirred is more correct. So you take it from wherever it is you're comfortable with it starting from, whether it's upwards or lower. Okay, your chest area, you take that measurement all the way down to where you would like the top to end. For me, this particular one I want it to be shorter than this one I have on, so it's going to be around my navel area. That's just about 1 inch less than this particular top. So you measure yours to wherever it is you want yours to end, and then note down that figure. Okay, now the next is our sleeve length. The sleeve will be starting from the same area as your chest. Okay, so you just want to take your measurement and just eyeball where you placed your measuring tape when measuring for the length of the top, and do the same thing from on your arm. Okay, so you take that measurement all the way down to how long you want it to be. I do not advise you make it too long since it's a shared top. Okay, so just take that measurement down, and then you note the figure down. We'll be doing some calculations shortly, don't worry. Then the next thing is to take around your arm or your biceps. Okay, the top area, you don't need the bottom, so just measure that. You take your measuring tape. So I do that myself, or you can get someone to do it for you if you're unable to. Okay, just round it. Okay, just make sure it's fitted, can move, but note down that figure. All right, and then the next thing is for us to do some calculations. Okay, now so for the calculation, the very first one is to calculate the width that we'll need for our bust, because it's a sheer top. We're using elastic thread, so it has to be more than the actual size of the bust. So your new bust equals your bust figure that you just measured multiplied by 1.5 or 1.5. okay, if you're using your calculator, bust times 1.5, and then whatever figure you get, divide that figure by 2, because we'll be cutting out 2 pieces for the front and back. Okay, so for example, your bust is 40 inches. 40 times 1.5 would give you 60. Okay, and then you divide 60 by 2. All right, now the next one is the top length of your top. Okay, so whatever figure you measured as your desired length of top, add 1 inch sewing allowance to it. So we'll be using 1/2 inch for the top and 1/2 inch for the bottom, meaning we'll be folding in 1/4 inch twice for the top and 1/4 inch twice for the bottom. Okay, so just 1 inch. If you're not good with following, if you're not okay with 1/2 inch, you can make yours 1 inch, but 1/2 inch is usually better. It makes it neater, look neat. Okay, then the next is the biceps, your round sleeve or round arm. Okay, so that's your sleeve width. So you multiply that by 2 inches. Okay, you multiply that by 2. All right. For the bust, the main top, you're multiplying by 1.5 or 1.5. For the biceps, you're multiplying, that's your sleeve width, you're multiplying by 2 inches. Okay, by 2. I keep saying 2 inches, by 2. All right, so whatever your figure is, multiply by 2 and keep that. And then your sleeve length, you just add 1 inch to it. Same thing as we did for the top. We'll be using half an inch sewing allowance for the top and of the sleeve, and then half an inch for the bottom. All right, so once you have all these figures, next thing is to get out our fabric so that we can cut out. Now for the fabric, we're going to be cutting out rectangles, 2 rectangles for the main body of the top and 2 rectangles for the sleeves. Okay, so this is just how it would look. All right, cut out 2 pieces for the main top and 2 pieces for the sleeve. I'll be showing you mine already cut out, and then we'll move from there. So these are my cut out pieces. I have the main body for the top, 2 pieces. Okay, and this is my length and that's my width. And then for my sleeve, I really want it short. Okay, I have 2 pieces. Remember, the sleeve is ×2 of your round arm or biceps. Okay, your sleeve width. Why this is ×1.5. Okay, so that's this. Now the next step now is for us to go and sew just one side together, join it together, only one side, so that it will just be one very long strip. Okay, if you join both of them together, it's going to be difficult trying to smock it all around or shear it all around. I'm still saying smock. So you want to sew, okay, from bottom all the way top using half an inch seam allowance. Sew from bottom all the way to the top. Okay, then after sewing, you open it up, okay, all the way out, and then you fold it in by 1/4 inch twice and sew. Okay, iron also. Do the same thing for the bottom. Now a trick I like to do is to just fold this by half an inch and iron it. When I iron it by half an inch, when I take it to the sewing machine, I just come here and fold this 1/4 inch inwards, so it meets that iron place at the edge here. It makes it really easy than trying to fold 1/4 inch twice and all of that and ironing. So you can just go ahead and just iron it just half an inch like this, and then when you're sewing, you fold this in, okay, to meet the ironed edge here underneath, that's inside, and then you keep sewing, and then after sewing you iron. It's really cool. So you do that for the top and the bottom. Okay, so what I said, sew, join one side together, open it up, finish the top, finish the bottom, and then sew and iron. And then for the sleeves, we will not be joining it yet until we are done smocking. Okay, so leave this aside. First of all, what you want to do here is to fold this inwards and sew, finish the top and the bottom, okay, by 1/4 inch twice, 1/4 inch twice. Do the same thing for the other side. After you're done with that, then you want to make sure you iron it afresh again. Okay, top bottom for the sleeves, and then for the body, join one side and then top and bottom all the way across, finish them. So let's quickly have that done. Okay, so I'm done. This is the main body for the top, one side sewn, ironed, and then you can see the top also finished, and then the bottom also finished all across. Okay, so yours should also look like this, and same thing for the sleeves, top and bottom finished, folded and ironed, sewn and ironed. So the next step now for us is to shear our top using our elastic thread. I'll get to that shortly. Now for us to do this, there are different ways you can determine how you want your shearing to be, or your smocking to be. Smocking is the more common word, but it's actually shearing. Okay, so some people have theirs, the distance between each one is 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. Some have theirs as half an inch, which is what we'll be doing. Some also have theirs as 1 inch, okay, distance and all of that. So we'll be using half inch. If you want to use any other one, that's totally fine, do you, but I'll be using half inch. And what I like to do is to come to the top here, okay, and take my measuring tape, and just as you have your half inch, that's how I'm going to mark it all the way from the top, okay, all the way to the bottom. Half inch, okay. Then I'll come over here again and then mark it half inch, and I'll be doing that all the way, okay. And then later on use my ruler to connect the marks, okay. So you don't have to mark all the way, just when you start at the beginning, go a little beyond where your ruler can get to, okay. Then mark half an inch all the way down, go a bit further again, mark another half inch all the way down. Then you can repeat the same step here and then at the end as well, okay. So we'll be doing this so that it helps to, when you're sewing, your shirring is really neat, okay. It's not all the way up and down because it can get quite confusing, but when you have those marks there, it serves as a guide as you're sewing. I'll be showing you how we'll be doing the sewing and turning around, going to and fro, but first of all, let's have this marked. The same way we're marking here is how we will come here and mark using our measuring tape. Once again, we'll mark half an inch, half using our tape as a guide all the way till we get to the end. Repeat the same step in the middle, repeat the same step here and here, and then use a ruler to connect the lines together, and then do the same thing for this. So I'm going to quickly have mine done. And also when you're doing that, please do it on the right side of the fabric, not the wrong side, because it's on the right side that we will be sewing when we take this to our sewing machine, okay. Your normal thread will be here and then the elastic will be underneath. The elastic is the one that will be in the bobbin. I'll get to that shortly. So please make sure you are drawing your lines on your right side and use your tailor's chalk, okay. By the time you're done sewing, it wouldn't even show, and when you even wash your outfit, everything would rinse off, but even before washing, it really doesn't get to show, okay. So let's quickly have that done. Half an inch all the way from the top, okay. So the top is there, and then the next half an inch is where I'll start marking from, okay. Just a bit, but enough that you can see it, so that when you're ruling with your ruler, you're not wondering where your mark is, okay. So that's what we'll do to every half inch mark till we get to the end, and then repeat the same step at different points like I explained, okay. So let's quickly have this done. Also, if you're yet to subscribe to my channel and you like my teaching, kindly click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel so that you get notifications when new tutorials come, and also to help my channel grow. And also please click the like button, it helps with the algorithm. Thank you. Okay, let's continue. Okay, so we're done drawing our lines. You can see the half inch from the top to the bottom all the way to the end, and then the same thing for the sleeves. So what I want you to do now is to just come to the edge of your fabric, the right side where you have your lines, and just measure half inch at the top, half inch at the bottom, and draw a straight line downwards, okay. That's going to be like the seam allowance, which we will not be sewing on, okay, because if you sew everything, by the time you want to join this side to that side, because it's already shared, you'll be sewing in way more than your half inch because it's so much and you wouldn't really be able to spread it apart. So let's just leave the half inch outwards. So I'm just going to measure half inch here at the top and then come to the bottom, and you want to repeat the same thing for the other side. Measure half inch and then use your ruler to rule that. So when you're sewing and you get to this line, you would know that okay, it's time to pivot, turn the fabric to the other side and just continue sewing. So you will not sew, extending to this area. And of course you're going to do the same thing for the sleeves as well. You measure half inch on both sides and you rule from top to bottom. Okay, so now that we have our half inch seam allowance line drawn on all edges, both on the sleeves and the top, the next step now will be for us to head to the sewing machine. But first of all, get out your elastic thread and your bobbins. You can see my bobbins. So I like to thread like 2 to 3 of them, so that when it's finished, when one gets finished, all I have to do is just place this back into the shuttle instead of winding every single time as you're sewing. Okay, so 2 3 is okay, and then when they all get finished, you can now rewind them. So this is my elastic thread. The elastic thread comes in different colors, but depending on where you are, you may just see the most common one, which is black or white. So I usually buy black. Okay, so whatever one you have, that's fine. If you have the colored one, that's also okay. Just know that the elastic thread will be showing underneath on the wrong side of the fabric. So for this, all you just want to do is to take your elastic thread and wind it around the bobbin. Please do not stretch it. Okay, you can see it stretches. Some people say when you stretch it while winding, it makes the fabric shear properly, smock properly. It's not true. Okay, so just wind it the way it is without stretching it. Just make sure it's firm as you're winding it inside. It's not, you know, you're not making it all loose. It's firm, but you are not stretching it. Okay, so let's quickly have this done. Wind your own bobbins. If you have 1, 2 or 3 empty ones, you want to have that done. And then once we are done with this, I'll take you to the sewing machine and show you how to adjust your stitch length and your tension, okay, so that you can get the best out of shearing your top. So let's quickly have this done, winding our bobbins. So we're done winding our bobbins, all of them, as you can see. So now I'm at my stitch length area. Your machine would definitely be different. Mine, I'm using an industrial sewing machine, so I usually sew at 2.5 stitch length. Okay, but for shearing, when you want to shear an outfit, you should increase it. Okay, some people increase it way, but me, I like to increase it to about 3.5. It's perfect for me. Okay, so whatever yours is, usually 2 to 2.5. You want to increase it to about 3.5 to 4, but I use 3.5. Okay, and then for your tension, okay, so for your tension here, everyone's own is going to be different. If you're using a tabletop, then you probably have yours on top. Okay, so whatever it is, you just want to increase it to make it loose a bit. So my tension here is quite tight. You can see the way the thread is coming out. So I'm just going to roll it to come outwards until I have my thread quite loose, just a bit loose. So I don't like to, you know, make it too loose, but it should be enough that the thread here should be coming out when you draw it freely. Okay, just a little bit of tension, but not as tight as when you're sewing regular stitches. So this is enough for me. I don't want it too loose. If not, on the wrong side of your fabric, you'll just see thread all over. So yeah, this is just okay. Tighten it a bit. Okay, so you just want to increase your own tension, so you can see how it's rolling. Okay, so I like how it is. So work on your own tension, just make it a bit more loose than it usually is. Okay, so with this one, next thing now, I'll show you how to sew on your fabric. All right, another thing is your bobbin. Some school of thought say you should loosen the knot in your bobbin, in your shuttle, sorry, a bit. Okay, I don't do that. So what I advise is just put your, this is my elastic thread already put inside, put your bobbin into your shuttle and then start sewing. And when you get to a certain length, okay, look at the part you've sewn, and if you see that it stretches well, usually the stretching starts from the second line. The first line is just okay. By the second and third line, you see that it's doing very well. It's the shearing has come more. So you can just check yours or use a scrap piece of fabric, and if you feel that after 3 lines it's not shearing properly, you can now come here and just loosen it just a tiny bit, not too much, just tiny. Just move it with a small screwdriver, but I don't do that. So you want to try yours, just use it this way first. If it doesn't work for you, then you loosen, but make sure that when you're done making your top, you tighten it back. But I do not loosen at all. Okay, so I'm going to fix it inside. Okay, now for sewing, you can see that my needle is placed on this line at the top edge. Yes, our first ½ inch line is here. As you can see, it should be the same on your fabric, but when we want to sew, we're going to start from this our seam line, the one we used in finishing off the raw edge of this thing, okay? So that you can start with this if you want it to just give it that effect of, you know, ruffles here, but I like to start here so that the smocking starts from the top, okay? So when starting, you want to start on this same ½ inch line on your seam line, okay? There you start, you sew, you tack, and then you sew using your seam line first of all the way till you get to the end, okay? And then when you get to the end of it, you're going to, so when you get to this end here, so my machine makes a lot of noise, so I don't want to. When you get to the end, you're going to stop at that ½ inch mark as well. We're still on our seam line, the first seam line, okay? So I'm just going to put my needle inwards, okay, as though I've gotten to the end. So when you get to the end here, you want to raise your needle plate, your sewing foot up, okay? And then you turn your fabric 90 degrees this way, okay? And then you raise your needle and then raise this up, and it will do a bit of stretching because of course your thread has to come out a bit more, and you push it up till you get to the next line here, okay? And you put your needle back. My elastic thread is not underneath, but when you're doing this, yours definitely would be, okay? So you put this back and let your needle, so make sure it lands on this next line. If it's still far off, you want to push this a bit forward, so you can release, draw your thread a bit and then push it forward and put your needle back in. Once your needle is back in, you turn it this way, you're now on your next line here, and then you continue sewing, okay? When you get to this end here, that's this line here, okay? It's the same thing you do. You lift up your sewing foot, turn it this way, okay? Then draw your needle to come to the next line. Once your needle enters inside, you turn it this way, and then you continue sewing. So it's the same repeat circle all through until we get to the end. And that's the same thing you're going to be doing for your sleeve as well, okay? For the sleeve, I'm starting here also, my seam line, and then when I get to the edge, I do the turning and come to the first line and then sew, and then get to this part, do the turning and go to the next line. So at the end, everywhere will be shared except this ½ inch and ½ inch. Same thing for the other sleeve and then the main body of the fabric. So let's have this done, okay? And whenever your bobbin finishes, all the bobbins that you want to rewind them again until you get to the very end. So let's have this done and then we'll move to the next step. Okay, so we're done smocking or shearing. All right, this is the main body of the top, which will be joining here, but it stretches as you can see. And then these are my sleeves. And also now, before we go ahead, if you have any threads coming out, you just want to cut that out. Before we go ahead to join them together, let's quickly have this ironed, okay? So you just want to place your iron lightly on top of it and just press, just to make it feel softer, okay? Do not iron the elastic area, the back part. Just iron only the top area, okay? The front side of your fabric. So do that for the two sleeves and then the body of the fabric also. Just lightly press it, okay? Just lightly press your iron on it. Do not stretch it, please. Do not stretch it. Just put your iron on top and lightly iron all the way. Once we have that, next step is to join the sides together. Okay, so now that we have everything ironed, you can see it feels a bit flatter. We're going to be taking this and folding each other so that the right sides face each other for the main part of the body, and then the same thing for the sleeve. And then remember, we have our ½ inch here. So we'll just be using our hand to stretch it out and then place both of them together and pin, okay? So this is how it's going to look. So you're just going to be sewing at the edge there all the way downwards. You want to have this pinned in place so that you do not sew into the smoked area. And even if while sewing you sewed a bit into the ½ inch, no problem at all. It wouldn't even reflect after sewing. Just make sure you stretch as much as possible when sewing, okay? So you do not take bulk of your fabric inwards. So we'll quickly pin this to the end, and then after pinning, you take this to the sewing machine and then you sew from the top to all the way to the bottom. You want to determine what area is your top, which part is going to be your top and the bottom. Okay, so for me, this is my bottom, so I'll sew from there after pinning them properly. Okay, as I've pinned here all the way downwards, sew to the edge, and then if you have a serger, you can serge the raw edges or use your zigzag stitches. You want to repeat the same thing for the sleeve to determine where is your top and where is your bottom part, and then fold. Okay, make sure you stretch it out as you can see, and pin, always pin, and then sew. Repeat same step for this, and once we have that done, we only have one more thing to do, which is to attach the sleeve to the body, and then we're done. So let's quickly have the sides sewn, okay, and then we'll return to complete this. Now remember to take your stitch length dial back to the original figure it was, whether it's 2 or 2.5. I use 2.5, and then also your tension to take that in so that it's tighter, because we are no longer sharing. Okay, so make sure that you adjust yours however it is for here and your stitch dial. All right, and also remember to replace your elastic thread, because you no longer be needing that, with your normal thread. And if you loosened your shuttle, remember to tighten it. I didn't loosen mine, so there will be no tightening. Okay, so fix your normal thread, and then let's get sewing. So now that we're done sewing, what's left now is you want to turn this inside out. Okay, what's left is to attach the sleeves. So you want to determine, like I said, what part will be the top and what part will be the bottom for me. Okay, so this is my bottom part. So you're going to look for your seams. Okay, that's where you joined your fabrics together. So this is one here. I've seen mine, you can see it there, and then the second one will be somewhere around there. Okay, I'll look for the second one. So you look for the first one. The first one will be quite noticeable because this is where you join the seams together. The second one was the seam that we joined before we started smocking, and you would also notice it would have this look here, okay, like spaced. So that's the second one. So let me start from this one that is more difficult to locate. Then you take your sleeve. Also here you want to determine where will be your top and bottom part. This has more ruffle, so I'll leave this as the bottom. So for the top part, I'm going to look for where I have my seam. That's where I join them together. So that's it there, you can see it. So look for yours. So seam line to seam line. I just found, okay, this is it. Okay, and then you pin them together, match them together this way. Okay, and what we're going to do is to sew about 1 inch on one side and 1 inch on the other side. You're going to stretch it. So what I like to do is to just have this pinned. Okay, and you can make this as detachable. If you want it as detachable, you just create buttonholes and then add buttons to the sleeve here, just little buttons that nobody can really see. Okay, if you want it to be detachable, so that you can remove and attach the sleeve anytime you want. So what I'm going to do now is take it to the sewing machine and just sew from 1 inch from the side seam here. Okay, try not to sew on your smocked, your elastic thread, so just a bit below here. Okay, just 1 inch, sew 1 inch, and then continue to sewing to 1 inch beyond the seam line. So at the end it's just about 2 inches. If you want it more, that's fine, but I found out that 2 inches is okay. Okay, so that's how it's going to be, and then you want to repeat the same thing for the other one. The other seam here is more noticeable, as you can see. So you just locate yours. This is the top part, and locate where my seam is. Okay, splendid. And then you pin them together, and same thing, stretch it and sew from 1 inch from your seam line all the way to 1 inch beyond your seam line. So I'm just going to pin this and take it to the sewing machine and sew, and then after sewing you're done. So after sewing I'll show you mine, and then when you're done also kindly tag me on Instagram like I said, or send me an email, send me a DM on Instagram. Let me see your pictures. So let's have this sewn and then we begin rocking our top.